Well, game one of the Western Conference Finals goes to the San Antonio Spurs. The Thunder lose a double overtime thriller, 122-115 the final. Along with Josh Calloway and Cameron Johnson, I am Colby Daniels. This was, I think, viewed as a heavyweight slugfest coming into this series that absolutely delivered tonight. There was a lot of good, a lot of bad, and a lot of ugly. I think we are, anticipating a very interesting series as for tonight. Lots of highs, lots of lows, and ultimately in double overtime, the San Antonio Spurs get it done.
Yeah, a game one that delivered, especially after, the first two rounds, the Thunder playing teams that they had clear advantages over and worked in their favor. But tonight they get their first real test in the postseason, at least, against a team that is very similar and doesn't have a lot of the weaknesses that those other teams did. And back and forth, it was not the prettiest night again by OKC, but still an entertaining game that comes down to double overtime and a fun start, poor result.
All-time game. I mean, it was unbelievable. I'm sure as a casual observer, this was probably unbelievably entertaining. But for Thunder fans, tough one to stomach. They've been in this spot before, dropping game ones. We'll get more into that as we go, I'm sure. But yeah, tough way to start this series. And this is 2016 OU Kansas, the Thunder version. Like all-time game. Fans are gonna remember it forever, but it's gonna sting because they didn't go the way of the Thunder.
Yeah, there's a lot of different things that we're going to hit, a lot that needs to be discussed, but yeah. I think first and foremost, you've got to give it up to this crowd. I thought the energy inside the Paycom Center was electric,
really good.
All the way up to tip-off. The first quarter, how many big momentum-type plays were there, and this place was absolutely rocking. The second quarter, unfortunately, was one of the worst quarters that I've ever viewed inside this building, and I think we were all nearly put to sleep with the offensive performance. Third quarter, fourth quarter, kind of had highs and lows, and then obviously, down the stretch of the fourth quarter, the first overtime, the second overtime until the final, minute and a half. This place was on the edge of their seats, standing up, just losing their minds with every big Thunder play, and having their breath punched out of their gut with every big Spurs play. But I thought the crowd was fantastic, and it kind of felt like, what we are somewhat spoiled to experiencing, and I'm not saying the crowd was bad for the first or second rounds, but neither one of those teams brought a level of danger that I think warranted the fans sort of reaching the fever pitch that they did tonight, and it was just good to be inside the Paycom Center and feel that energy.
If you were to just listen to the crowd, not watch the game, you would think that the Thunder were dominating. That's just how energetic this crowd is. And, like you said, that second quarter was a little bit of a drag in that standpoint. But, yeah, it's an electric environment. And I think, like you said, those first two rounds, not a huge threat compared to this one at least. And I think them, as well as the players, they recognize just how big this series is for a number of reasons. But, it was fun to be in.
No, the crowd was unbelievable. I thought for some reason the defense chants in particular were especially good tonight.
Yeah.
They had a little extra. But like you said, Kobe, the second quarter is where they fell behind. Mark Daigneault he went Aaron Wiggins for the second quarter, which is, we haven't seen Wiggins play in these playoffs. They immediately, it was tied at the end of the first. They go down 7, and they felt like they were playing catch-up the rest of the night after that. You mentioned the second quarter was kind of flat. Aaron Wiggins, that was all he played. He was a -7. How many did they lose by tonight? 7. It's like they were just playing catch-up all night from that second quarter. The crowd was unbelievable. They tried to will him in it. They could almost taste it a couple times, the first overtime especially, but yeah, it was, they were just trying to play catch-up all night. It seemed like the crowd was doing everything they could, but they just couldn't go over that hump.
Crowd was great. While we're talking about great things, you can't say enough about Alex Caruso's performance tonight. 31 points. How many momentum plays did he make in this game that brought the Thunder back in? You mentioned, Josh, they were playing catch-up all night seemingly, and most of those runs to get back in the game were led by some sort of Alex Caruso steal or Alex Caruso three-pointer, Alex Caruso saving a ball from going out of bounds. He was all over the tip passes that ultimately maybe resulted in somebody else getting a transition bucket, but started with him making a hustle play. He was, and I'm going to say this, and you look at Victor Wembanyama's stat line, you're going to think that's crazy, but for the majority of tonight, Alex Caruso was the best player on the floor. So many impact plays, and unfortunately, on a night that Alex Caruso delivers an all-time incredible performance, it goes wasted because the Thunder don't get the win. But this was one of those games that I mean, if you are a Thunder fan, you'll always remember the performance that Alex Caruso left on the court. He did not leave anything in his gas tank.
No, not at all. And I look at my key plays that I wrote down in the fourth quarter, and it just was like every play was Caruso, Caruso, Caruso. And it, like you said, it wasn't even just scoring. I mean, he would get on the end of a steal, force a turnover, and then he had that great play. I think it was on this end where, it looks like it's going out, and he just lobs it off. I think it was Wembanyama, and ends up back in OKC possession. He was fired up after that, and rightfully so. I mean, it wasn't like he just had a really good first half. He picked up right where he left off in the second and overtime as well. And as you mentioned, an all-time performance, and unfortunately the rest of the Thunder couldn't do enough to come away with a win. But big things, I think, for him in this series.
Yeah, Alex Caruso was insane in this game. I mean, he was doing everything. He was making threes. He put up a 30 ball in this game off the bench. Like I said, playing great defense on Wemby, which we were kind of talking about that before.
Yeah.
Like, we've seen him do it against Jokic and LeBron, and he did it against Wemby. He was as successful as anyone, trying to slow him down as much as you possibly can, which is we've come to see impossible to do, obviously, for the most part. But, yeah, I mean, he was the reason they were in this game and had a chance to win. Alex Caruso was the Thunder's best player by far in this game.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's something you necessarily want when you have the guys that they do, but obviously he was incredible, and by no means on the blame pie they do. He gets 0%. He was absolutely incredible in this game, and it's too bad it didn't come in a win.
I mean, Spurs win this game by 30 points if Alex Caruso doesn't do the things that he did tonight. I mean, he single-handedly, I felt like, kept OKC from getting drowned in the deep end of the pool at times, because they just offensively it was dreadful for most of the night. And I give the defense overall was pretty solid, but they couldn't make a shot. It's crazy when you look at the final box score, because the Thunder ended up shooting 37% from three, and San Antonio shot 30% from three.
Yeah.
Like, there was a point in this game where you would have said there's 0% chance that the Thunder are going to shoot better from three than San Antonio is, and it ended up going that direction. But I mean, there were so many open threes, especially in the first half, that didn't go down. They just struggled, it felt like, to just find consistent offense. I thought the aggressiveness just overall on the offensive end of the floor. Defensively, the aggressiveness was terrific. On the offensive end of the floor, the aggressiveness was almost non-existent. It was a very passive type of mentality, which you don't see from the Thunder often. There was a point in this game where I just thought San Antonio is out-thundering the Thunder. Like, San Antonio was the aggressor. San Antonio was the more physical team. And for, I know Wemby is a big part of why maybe the Thunder weren't ultra-aggressive offensively, and just his presence in the paint alters your decision-making, and, you think twice maybe about going to the rim because he's such a great shot blocker. He's so long, but at some point you have to be aggressive, and you can't just sort of, like, I think, be as passive offensively as they were. And they did get aggressive finally, in the later stages of the fourth quarter, and that's ultimately what got them back into the game and forced the overtimes. But offensively, there's a lot to fix, and a lot of it, I think, just simply has to be a more aggressive approach.
And what's funny, you look back on most of the regular season as well as this early part of the postseason, three-point shooting is where you'd like to see them improve a little bit more, and then they come into this game and they're the better team when it comes to perimeter shooting. But it goes to show you how small that margin for error is, and the team mentioned that a lot leading in the days leading into this series. They go on, they're better from the outside, but then San Antonio gets to the line a lot more, and all of a sudden it's those little things add up into a 7-point loss in the end.
Yeah, I mean, I get Victor Wembanyama is insane, right? I mean, he's Defensive Player of the Year. He's ginormous down low, but yeah, I mean, just a complete refusal for a lot of this game to take anything to the rim or challenge him at all. I mean, he didn't get a foul until the fourth quarter of this game.
He didn't have a block until the fourth quarter either.
Because there's just no challenge. I mean, they didn't make him play defense, basically.
It's like a shutdown corner that, doesn't have any stats, but has eliminated a portion of the field. Yeah.
And so, I don't know. And they got a little better, later in the game and into overtime. I would hope going into game two, they wouldn't be so passive when it comes to Wemby. And I get you don't want to just challenge him over and over. We saw against Minnesota that game where he had 15 blocks, whatever it was. Like, he can do that. But they just completely decided, like, we're not going to push it at all against him. And I don't know if that's the way you want to go. And then it didn't make sense to me either that if the strategy is just to shoot a bunch of threes, where's Isaiah Joe? Isaiah Joe didn't play at all in this game. I was shocked by that, frankly. And he's been kind of hit or miss in the playoffs, but especially in a game like this where you're, again, not gonna challenge, go to the rim very often. Your best shooter, or at least your streakiest when he's rolling shooter, didn't play essentially in this game. I was a little surprised by that.
Yeah. Cameron, you mentioned the free throws. That, again, I think goes back to San Antonio being the aggressor. They shot 10 more free throws on the night. Both teams shot pretty well from the line. San Antonio was 27 of 29. The Thunder were 16 of 19. But, people can complain about the whistle. I agree that there were some bad calls in this game. That happens in every game. That happens for both sides. I don't think that's what cost the Thunder the game. But ultimately, the more aggressive team generally gets the better whistle, and I think that was the case tonight. San Antonio was the more aggressive team for the majority of this game, and they got the better whistle. They absolutely dominated the boards. They're plus 21 in the rebounding department, San Antonio. We talked in the pregame show about turnovers and points off turnovers being incredibly important. San Antonio is really good at taking care of the ball. Thunder forced 8 more turnovers than they gave up in this game and were plus 11 in points off turnovers. And then the bench was plus 34 compared to San Antonio's bench, and it still wasn't enough.
Yeah, and granted, a lot of that credit goes to Alex Caruso coming off the bench. But yeah, a lot of missed opportunities out there, a lot left on the table. You hope, if you're a Thunder fan, that maybe it's a little bit of rust again, or maybe you don't. That might be a worse sign. But you hope that this is the wake-up call that they need to hopefully come back with a much sharper, more dominant performance in Game 2.
I don't know what you do about the rebounding, because Wemby, he's superhuman. I don't know what you do. He had 20, how many?
24.
24. That's dumb. I don't know. And a lot of them were just pure, he's huge at the rim. There's only so much you can do about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm curious, with the Caruso, do they tweak? We talked about it in the pregame a little bit. Do they tweak the lineup at all? We saw them go double big and got rid of it real quick. It was 2-3 minutes, and then Mark Daigneault went Caruso, and he played a ton of minutes. I'm curious if Caruso starts Game 2 or if I don't know. I don't know what.
I don't think he
I'm
starts,
interested.
but I think they maybe adjust what the lineup looks like. I think they like having Caruso come in as a spark plug and not like a starter. But I could
go smaller.
I
Chet
envision Chet playing the 5, and maybe you start Cason Wallace, or maybe you start Isaiah Joe or Jared McCain, or you just bring an extra guard. I think it's a better matchup for you. There was a lot, I think, in this game that the Thunder are going to look at and ask questions and answer questions over the next 24 hours. And a big part of that has got to be the 2-time MVP Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He wins the MVP last night, was awarded the trophy right before tip-off, and it was a rough night for SGA. He finishes with 24 points, 7 of 23 from the floor. Again, we talked about the aggressiveness. Didn't feel like early in the game he was super aggressive. I kind of felt like maybe at times he lost confidence and wasn't looking for a shot. Then he got aggressive toward the end of the game. Had a couple of weird non-Shea-like plays in critical moments down the stretch of the fourth quarter and the overtimes. But Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is the MVP of the NBA, and he's got to be a much better player in this series going forward than we saw tonight.
And the fact that he comes back from a quiet start to the night, a rough start even, and comes back with, I think it was 11 points in the fourth quarter, 13 through overtime. He shows flashes that he's just like maybe a couple of big plays from figuring it out and getting back into the swing of things. But it's certainly uncharacteristic. You give that first series or this last series against the Lakers, you're like, okay, well, that's uncharacteristic. Hopefully he'll get it turned around. But now it's one game, but you wonder if he's in a little bit of a slump right now.
Yeah, these game ones have not been good. The layoffs have been hard on him, and he's gotten better as the series have gone on. The problem is the Spurs are a lot better than the last two teams they played, so it's like you can't afford that as much. He's going to have to be a lot better. He was not good today, obviously, really at all, and he wasn't the biggest problem. Probably get to that in a second, I'm sure, but he didn't play well, obviously. And he said as much post game, I have to be much better in Game 2, and in the MVP battle, the star battle, Victor Wembanyama was far better in this game, and that's gonna. Whoever has the best player in an NBA game wins a lot of the time, or even in a series. And so far, one game, Victor Wembanyama has been the best player, and the Spurs have won nothing.
Well, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander won the MVP for two major reasons stand out to me for why he won the MVP. Number one, his efficiency, right? That's what we preach as far as him being a guard and the efficiency. The efficiency wasn't there tonight. The other thing is he was the clutch player of the year this year. He was so good in clutch time, and that again wasn't the case tonight. I know he had the big layup at the end of the fourth quarter, but there was another layup opportunity on a 2-on-1 where I think he got like stuffed and could have passed it or could have done almost anything else, and it's maybe a different outcome.
Yeah, they were bad at finishing
he had a bad
fast
turnover
breaks a lot in the second half. It was weird.
Yeah, he had a bad turnover. I believe in the second overtime with about a minute to go. When you start counting possessions, and then that one got away, and you just think that might be it. They're gonna need something special. But he is so much better than that in clutch time all year long, and even this postseason. That those two areas, efficiency and clutch time, are what got him that award. And tonight, both of those were missing in a big way.
And he gets that the big layup in the fourth quarter, I think you said it was, and gets the foul as well, but then missed the free throw, if I remember correctly. That right there shows you in itself that something's off. But at the end of the day, it's a bad day for Shea, and it's still 24 points. Yep. You hope to see a lot more efficiency, but if you're shaking your head at 24 points, it's like it could be worse, but we'd certainly like to see better.
Yeah, he was, like you said, he's MVP. He's also the clutch player of the year this year. He's known for rising to the moments late in games, and he played better down the stretch and in the overtime periods, but just nowhere near what we're used to seeing, obviously. And that turnover, trying to slip it to Chet, it was a weird decision, and he wasn't sharp. He just wasn't sharp.
Yeah, and the team overall wasn't sharp. Again, maybe some of that is rust, and they look and play a much better brand of basketball on Wednesday, but tonight that was definitely missing. I will, before we get to Chet, I will say J-Dub has been out for about a month, and he wasn't highly efficient, but in the first quarter it was essentially J-Dub and Alex Caruso that kept the Thunder in this thing when San Antonio seemed like they were clicking and the Thunder weren't. I thought, them getting J-Dub downhill at the top of the key especially seemed to open up a lot of the offense early in the game. They kind of went away from that for a stretch of this game, but J-Dub is such a weapon in transition when you can sort of, get the numbers and there's no good matchup from San Antonio to defend him. You wonder, being out for a month, what his legs were like down the stretch of this game and how much juice he actually had. But, I think all things considered, pretty good performance out of him.
Yeah, and I think whenever you look at how the game started, a lot of the attention goes to Alex Caruso, and I think that's natural with just how explosive he was playing. I found myself looking down at the box score a couple of times and being like, well, J-Dub's right there with him. I think in the first quarter, both he and Caruso had 10 points through that time, and he ends up with the second highest point total on the night for the Thunder, at least. And you look down, and it's like it was sneakier, but again, when you have someone like Alex Caruso who's going and lighting it up, your attention goes there. But I think overall it was a performance to be pleased with.
Yeah, I thought probably the single most encouraging thing from this game was how J-Dub looked. He looked like himself. He looked healthy. I thought he played quite well. Obviously, Caruso was incredible, and he's the Thunder's best player tonight. You don't know if Alex Caruso's probably not going to give another 30 ball in this series, probably. Maybe he does. Yeah. I don't know. But like what J-Dub did, that is J-Dub, and that's what you expect to get from him on a nightly basis. And so, I thought he was moving good, and he was really, the offense going through him was their best offense tonight, like you said. Yeah. It was a very good showing for him first time out, I thought.
So we did a segment in the pregame show as we started to preview this series about the individual rivalry between Victor Wembanyama and Chet Holmgren. We mentioned how Wemby seems to take that rivalry a little more personal than Chet seems to. There's a lot more intensity with Wemby, I think, in relation to Chet than there is coming back the other way. It's hard to call it a rivalry, I guess, on a night when you look at the final box score. Wemby scores 41 points and grabs 24 rebounds. Chet was 8 points, 8 rebounds, and for as much as Wemby's fingerprints were all over the San Antonio win, the, I guess, lack of fingerprints from Chet Holmgren in this game, very concerning. He
was basically non-existent through the entirety of regulation, and his only redeeming thing was when he comes up with that game-saving block to force overtime. And it's like, okay, there he is. But I can't help but wonder, you got Wemby over here, feeding into the rivalry a little bit more, and clearly tonight and across that regular season series, It makes you wonder if he knows that he's got the advantage in this, and so he plays into it a little more, where Chet maybe has a little bit of a, maybe not a confidence issue, but he's aware of the fact that Wemby does have his number. So it'll be interesting to see how he responds to that, if it is much better or if there just is a very clear difference between the two.
Yeah, I'm a Chet fan. I think he's, I think Thunder fans a lot of times, frankly, are too hard on him.
Agreed.
He's a really young player.
Agreed.
He's been really good in the playoffs these first couple rounds. He was horrific in this game. I mean, awful. And he had the block. That was it.
Yeah.
That was it. I think the Wemby thing is totally, it's a lot mental. I think he's intimidated by this matchup and by Wemby. I don't know. He doesn't play the same way, and he just wasn't finishing anything, wasn't getting rebounds, and he had 8 in a game that had 10 extra minutes.
Right.
That's not going to do it, and so he's going to have to be way better. This was a rough game for him. I'm sure he's upset about it, but he's got turn around, do it again in a couple of days.
Yeah.
He's got a chance to bounce back, but yeah, no doubt that he was really bad. Who was it down here at this end that stuffed him when they were down 4 in the double?
It was a guard.
It was
I
a
think
guard.
it might have been Dylan Harper.
I mean, that was to cut it back to a one-score game in double OT, and he couldn't finish over a guard. I mean, it's like, come on, dude, come on. He was bad.
Wemby, I thought all night long they made it a point to try and take advantage of the Wemby matchup with guards, especially when it was like Caruso, and credit Caruso for playing his rear end off defensively.
Yeah.
There were a lot of possessions in this game where Chet and Wemby were on the floor together, but they weren't matched up specifically against each other, and the Thunder, for whatever reason, weren't able to take advantage of maybe Chet's mismatches. I don't know how much of that is on the team. I don't know how much of that is on Chet, but when you watch it happen on one end of the floor with Wemby and a mismatch, and it's not being reciprocated from the Thunder and or Chet, it's concerning because he is a mismatch, and you've got to exploit those things, and maybe he just wasn't in it. I don't know, but he's got to be significantly better, especially because we talked about it. You start the game with the 2 bigs, and that was clearly not a good lineup against this Spurs team, and so you're not going to be able to play Chet and Hart together. Those guys have been exceptional this season. I mean, they've been really good playing together, which means, Chet's going to have to take on a bigger role when Hart's not in the game and take on that true center role, which means he's going to have to be a bigger presence and a more dominant force and grabbing more rebounds. And, I think, flexing, so to speak, his advantages over pretty much everybody on the court.
Whenever you look at the strategy to containing Wemby, I think a big deal is he's going to dominate in the paint. You need to have someone who can stretch the floor, pull him out of there. And to me, Chet, if you're going between your bigs, Chet is the better 3-point shooter, and I think that's why you look at this matchup and you're like, okay, this ought to be pretty good. But to your point, I really do think there is an intimidation factor in there that he's going to have to get that figured out quickly, or the Thunder could be in a lot of trouble.
No doubt. I mean, just the thing that stands out to me is just the inability to finish over guards. Anytime, Wemby has the ball with a guard, and I'm not saying he needs to be Wemby, right? Wemby is one of one, but, it's over when Wemby has a smaller guy on him down low. And Chet, for some reason tonight, just couldn't get any room. I don't know. It was odd and just a bad game, really bad game, and you have to hope that he'll play a lot better in game 2. I mean, it's really just that simple.
I mean, we've said so many times, when Chet's decisive, he's a completely different player.
And he's been that way in the playoffs.
He has been for the most part, and tonight, I mean, there were several times he touched the ball and just.
He had one shot in the first
half.
half.
Like he didn't even know what he didn't know what he was going to do with it.
Yeah, at halftime, one shot. I mean, this guy is supposed to be one of your big 3.
Yeah.
The good news is, on a night where Chet Holmgren's fingerprints on this game are almost invisible, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has, I think, the worst playoff performance of his Thunder career. Takes double overtime for the San Antonio Spurs to get it done, and the series is not lost. It's a 7-game series. The Thunder lost Game 1 to Denver in the Western Conference semifinals a year ago. They lost Game 1 in the NBA Finals to the Indiana Pacers a year ago. They were able to come back. I do think this is a different challenge than either one of those teams, but I think we've seen the best out of the Thunder when they faced adversity, and I would expect that on Wednesday night for Game 2.
I would expect the same. I think a lot of Game 2 is going to be more mental than anything, or there's going to be a bigger mental aspect to it. You were mentioning this is a team that came in to the home of the defending champions and stole Game 1. Will they keep that same intensity? I imagine they do, but then you've got the Thunder, who I think are going to come out with a chip on their shoulder, knowing they got beaten at home, and I think it's going to be a lot better. The question is it good enough?
Yeah, I wouldn't have a meltdown just yet. Like you said, I mean, they've been here. They've literally done this exact thing a couple of times, and unlike a year ago when they were in the spot, like, they have a championship under their belt already. Like, they know they can do this. And Mark Dagnall talked about it post-game. He has a very relaxed, like, yeah, we're going to make adjustments. We're going to come back and do it again. Like, he's so chill about it. You can't help but almost make you feel a little better, frankly, hearing him talk about it. But, yeah, we'll see what they can do in a couple of days. I mean, Game 2 is everything, right? I mean, you have to split going back to San Antonio, and that's what they'll have to find a way to do, in a couple of days. But, yeah, I think if you're the Thunder, you're still feeling like SJ is going to certainly be a lot better, shoot it a little better. Now the Spurs might get Fox back at some point. But, the opportunities were there. They had to lead. They're up 3 in the overtime with 30 seconds left with the ball, and they have a chance to put it away. Wemby hits that insane 3, and, I mean, that he doesn't make that shot, they probably win, right?
Yeah.
And that's how it goes, I mean, in these close games. So you got to just roll the ball out there and see if you can't get it done this time.
AJ Mitchell hits a wide open 3 in transition. It probably is just enough to get it done.
There's a million little plays in a game that close.
Like, little plays. I don't think you can just sum up that game to one play being the difference, but there were a lot of those types of plays where I felt like the ball seemingly bounced in a way where the Spurs just took advantage of it more than the Thunder. There are a few more loose balls that I felt like San Antonio just gave a little more effort to chase down than the Thunder did. Over the course of the game, that's not to say the Thunder weren't chasing down loose balls, but over the course of the game, I think more of those opportunities to try and make one small difference-making play went the Spurs' way, and that's a credit to, I think, being the aggressor, which the Thunder are going to have to do in Game 2 on Wednesday night. All right, it was a double overtime thriller at the Paycom Center. San Antonio steals Game 1 from the Thunder. They steal home court advantage in the Western Conference Finals. We'll see what the Thunder have in store for the Spurs on Wednesday night. For Josh Calloway and Cameron Johnson, I am Colby Daniels. Thunder lose. They'll have to bounce back Wednesday night for Game 2. We'll see you for pregame here at the Paycom Center beginning at 5 p.m.